Why are you guys making me play this? I hated this game. Hated this game. As much as anything I've ever reviewed. King Arthur. Who voted for this? No, don't answer that. It's rhetorical, I know, I can just go and check. But it's baffling. This game isn't famous. It's not even infamous. Nobody gave a shit about King Arthur and the Knights of Justice in '95 when it was released, and nobody gives a shit about it now. There's next to no contemporary YouTube coverage. It's sold like garbage. So even though there's next to no demand, it's still sort of expensive. The only people who have played this game only did so because they downloaded a complete Super Nintendo ROM set, saw a game with King Arthur in the title, tried it out for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes and thought, oh, so this is just like a Secret of Mana clone, only with King Arthur. Cool. Then never thought about it ever again. Moving on to the next game, potentially the other Super Nintendo King Arthur game, which is sort of a side-scrolling strategy puzzle game. Maybe the people voting were thinking of this one, but that's not really an RPG. I have played it, it's much better than this. Pro Jared did a Let's Play of King Arthur and the Knights of Justice once upon a time, but he only did 2 episodes and only made it to the first boss. This green dragon. I'm willing to bet that the dragon is about as far as 90% of the people who've tried this game make it. And if you want to check out King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, hating this game, even I would recommend playing as far as this point. Because as a casual curiosity, as a thing you check out once, it's fine. But if you're in it till the end, it's fucking terrible. And the worst part is that it's not awful in an obvious to point out, easy to make fun of kind of way. With some games like Lord of the Rings, yeah, is this who I'm controlling? You can tell right away this game sucks. In Lagoon, as soon as you hit attack, you know you're in for some serious shit. King Arthur never really has a moment like that. If you're simply passing on by, checking out a bunch of Super Nintendo games, it doesn't have that legendarily bad game stench. You really need to dig in to pick up on the scent. And I'm gonna come right out and say it. This game does not get enough crap. It belongs on any worst of the Super Nintendo, worst action RPGs, worst games based on King Arthur, worst games of whatever, fill in the blank. It belongs on those lists. I bring all of this up because the game actually undoubtedly makes a fairly strong first impression. Opening cutscene fills us in on the backstory. In medieval England, King Arthur's kingdom is in desperate peril. The sorceress Morgana has imprisoned Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. No heroes remain in my time, so with my magic I search throughout time for help. Merlin the wizard then finds a football team, teleports them from present day back to the past, and there are King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. That's a winning concept. That sounds amazing. So we have this strong intro cutscene, then the game starts, and you can select any 2 knights at the round table to join your party. These big detailed graphics, they look fantastic. This is the best screen in the game where you're going through looking at all the different knights. You can even view their stats. I don't know why everybody's attributes appear to be almost exactly the same, but either way, this game's winning me over so far. Stepping outside, first impressions again are fair. It feels fine hitting things. You have this Secret of Mana styled combat with a recharging attack meter. Your fellow knights, your party members, actually seem helpful. In fact, they might be too competent. They fuck these warlords up worse than you do. 5 minutes in, and I thought we had some kind of hidden gem on our hands. Then you start to explore. Everything just sort of looks the same. There's no sense of direction, and you're just kind of wandering around without seeing anything too interesting for a while. Now, it's a delicate balance. Some games set you free, lets you explore to your heart's content, and they don't really offer any real sense of direction either, but they make up for it by populating these worlds with interesting people, just cool things to see and do. So you walk around for a few minutes, maybe around this time you'll bring up the map screen, and okay, it looks self-explanatory enough. You're on a long, vertically oriented island that somewhat resembles England. Wait a second, is England the name of the island? I know England's the country, but Scotland and Wales are on the island too. What's the name of the island? Calling it the United Kingdom wouldn't be right either. Hang on. Oh! I'm stupid. Great Britain is the name of the island. Anyway, Castle Camelot, where you started, is at the bottom of the map, and the supremely obvious end of the game is up top. Easy enough, your entire adventure on this map screen is already outlined. You're going to venture up this island, from the castle to this desert-looking area up top. As of now, you'll likely only find 3 places of interest. This fairy lady who says you need to find some shield before you may wield Excalibur, these 2 statues that the game won't let you walk past, and this row of fire blocking your path, sort of. Blocking part of your path anyway. This wall of fire is too dangerous to try and cross. Let's ask Merlin if he knows a way to get past. Okay, I can't simply walk around? It wouldn't have been too much to ask to have them have the fire cover the entire path instead of part of it? I mean, whatever, it doesn't really matter, I digress. Walk back to the castle, it's not that far away, so it's fine. Talk to Merlin, who informs you that he needs 1 Eye of Newt, a monk should, a hairball, and a nightshade in order to brew a fireproof potion. Now, some people like to call these fetch quests, whenever you need to scour an area for specific items. I like to call them scavenger hunt quests. They're usually incredibly lame, and I never feel like doing them whenever they come up. In this case, we're limited to a fairly small area, so again, not terrible. Yet. After finding the items, we pass through the fire, which leads to a linear path, which I'll dub a pre-dungeon. You're not indoors, there's no real navigation, you're just kind of in the space which occupies the area between exploration and a proper dungeon. King Arthur's pre-dungeons range from awful to admittedly cool. There's this trial and error field with hidden holes all over the place. Reminds me of that one room in Chrono Trigger with Ozzy and those trap doors. Only you don't lose health in Chrono Trigger, and there's a save point down there, and treasure, and the easiest way to grind your TP in the whole game. Plus, Ozzy is a funny little guy, and it's endearing. It builds his character when he pulls a stunt like this. Here in King Arthur, you're just falling into holes repeatedly until you memorized where they all are. They don't stay open. Once you fall in one and make your way back to this screen, you need to remember where that hole was, or else you'll fall in again. King Arthur's pre-dungeons are things like that. Sort of half-baked, but you can almost imagine them in a better game. Eventually you come to the Green Dragon, the one from Pro Jared's Let's Play, aka the furthest anyone ever makes it in this game. And for good reason, he's tough as shit. This dragon has a huge difficulty spike. If you didn't have the foresight to grind on these respawning orbs which allow you to shoot balls at it, then you don't stand a chance. Then after killing the dragon and doing a couple other things, you're allowed to move past these statues and onto the next part of the game. The reason I outlined this entire intro is because you have now witnessed the first full rotation of what I like to call the King Arthur cycle. This game is structured as such. You unlock a new segment of the island directly north of where you are currently. There's some kind of obstacle preventing you from going too far north, and an NPC which requires you to find 4 items. And it's always 4 items. Never 3, never 5, 4. To give you some kind of MacGuffin allowing you into the pre-dungeon, and after the pre-dungeon is a traditional dungeon, which is always this exact same tile set arranged into some kind of light maze. After the dungeon is a boss battle, which when defeated drops a key, granting you access to the next area just north of where you are. Rinse and repeat until you're at the top of the island, then the entire game's over. This by itself isn't a deal breaker. Sure, it sucks that there's so many scavenger hunt quests. A game can get away with 1 or 2 of these at most before I'll call you out on it. Definitely not 12 like King Arthur here. But this whole cycle business is ruined by one simple design decision they made. Those keys the boss fights drop. Each key corresponds to exactly one particular knight. The only place you can swap out knights is at Castle Camelot. The game does not tell you ahead of time which key goes to which knight. If you do not have the correct knight as one of your 2 companions, Arthur will refuse to pick up the key. I am not kidding. This will drive you up a fucking wall. You'll go through the whole cycle only to get to this point, and the game will tell you to go all the way back to Castle Camelot so you can swap your stupid fucking party members just so you can pick up the dumb MacGuffin which allows you into the next part of the game. Not only that, but every time you pick up one of these keys, it warps you back to the castle anyway. Does that sound bad? No? Well, with this information, let's diagram a full cycle, the next cycle in fact. we venture into this unexplored land, get blocked by whatever obstacle they said to put over there. Normally it's just these statues, but once in a while it's something interesting, such as that wall of fire. We find the NPC who tells us what items to look for, then we scour the available land for the 4 items. If you're lucky, they'll ask for something that you either already have or already had to get for someone else, because then at least you know where to find it, hypothetically. Give them the items so we can go into the dungeon, kill the boss, only then to find out which knight is capable of actually picking up the gosh darn key, so we go back to Castle Camelot, then all the way back through the dungeon, and finally we pick up the key, allowing us to go further north. But remember, the key warps you back to Castle Camelot again. Do you see how as you get higher up on the island, this gets more and more annoying? Now, I couldn't think of a good spot to bring this next bit up, so I'll just mention it here. There's this invisible enemy that you can just wail on forever and he won't die, which fine, whatever, just walk past him, move on with your life, man. Only you can't, because in this game, once you aggro an enemy, it does not allow you to leave the screen. So either he dies or you die. And if he's invincible, I have no choice but to let him kill me. Eventually. Easier said than done, this guy sucks. I thought I was doing something wrong, so I looked it up, and according to Flying Omelet's walkthrough, not only was I not mistaken about this, apparently this guy is known to crash your entire game. And now's as good a time as any to mention that King Arthur relies on password saves, a Super Nintendo game from 1995 that still uses password saves. Albeit the shortest, simplest one you'll ever see, which is actually not a good thing because the shorter the password, the less data it's keeping track of. In this case, it only tracks your progression, aka how much of the island you have unlocked, all your items, any and all progression into a King Arthur cycle, all gone. And looking at this password makes you realize how basic King Arthur and the Knights of Justice is. There are no level ups, there are no experience points, money, shops, equipment, unlockable skills. There's absolutely no character progression at all, but they all act exactly the same. There's never a strategic reason to bring one over another. All you're going to do is randomly pick 2 whose keys you don't already have in the worthless pursuit of hopefully not having to backtrack one more time. You spend most of your time minute to minute in this game wandering around identical looking forests searching for anything you might be able to pick up off the ground, praying it's one of those 4 items you need to move on with your life. Man, King Arthur was a tough game to sit through, and I like to think that I've built up a great tolerance for this sort of crap. Normally I'll play something for a couple hours at a time, but with this, 15 minutes. That's it. That's all I could do. It sapped my patience that quickly. You ever play a game only to get to that one part you don't feel like doing because you know it's just going to be pointless and annoying? That's King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, except the entire game is that one part. The whole thing is like that. Even its awesome premise, I can't even give credit to the game for because it was based on a Saturday morning cartoon of the same name. I watched every episode I could find on YouTube, and by watched I mean I had it on in the background while I was playing the game. It's fine, nothing spectacular. It's one of those basically the same thing every single time shows. Think of, I don't know, He-Man, or people have compared it to Power Rangers. There's always a different villain every episode, and nothing ever gets resolved. They're always in this perpetual quest to save the real King Arthur. The cartoon never got an ending, which is rectified in the game. You kill the big bad scary end dragon, shake hands with the original King Arthur, and then are warped back to your own time. This game is a happy end. Shout out to the patrons, especially William Robert Lee, and especially to Kojiro Highwind, who asked, is it okay if you submit your own logo? Yes, of course. Submit whatever you want, message me whatever logo you want to represent yourself, and I'll put it on this end screen here. As for the poll, Uncharted Waters New Horizons ran away with it, 8 points with the next closest netting 3. The new poll is up over on Patreon, so go out and vote. Anyway, that's all I got. Never trust anyone who needs a haircut. Goodbye. Remember to turn my fridge on.